Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Sabrina, and today I thought we would talk a little bit about why I started this channel. And that's because I myself have lost and maintained the weight loss of about 45 pounds over the years. It's fluctuated a little bit, but I'm going to say 45 pounds. And so I thought I could talk to you a little bit about what's worked for me, what I would recommend, how I've been able to do that, and why I feel like now I'm in the most sustainable part of my life when it comes to my weight loss journey. So if you enjoy this type of content, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to my channel so I know that you're into it, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I wanted to back up a little bit and talk about my weight loss journey before I get into the weight loss tips. And I have made a whole video kind of about my journey and sort of the emotionality of all of that. So I'll link that down below. But basically, I was one of those people who always struggled with their weight. And I mean that from a really, really early age. I was 5'5" and fully mature physically by the time I was 8 years old. And I just started to grow a lot faster than my peers in height, but also in weight. And it just kind of felt like my body was out of control. And I didn't have a lot of experience with nutrition at that age, but I started my first diet when I was 9 years old, which I think is absolutely insane. But I knew I was overweight and I wanted to do something about it. I just didn't know how to do it then. So I did things like eat a lot of carrots and then slowly started learning about nutrition and realized, okay, I need to cut back on soda and all of these juices aren't really serving me and things like that that you really shouldn't have to worry about as a kid, but that's just part of my journey. So I started to figure things out. I started to make healthier swaps, have a better idea of what was going on with nutrition and what I needed to do. It wasn't anything very advanced though, but over the years, kind of up until going to college, I would say I was able to lose some of that weight by being more conscious of what I was eating and also exercising. But I think the real value of my weight loss journey came later on. When I was in college, I wasn't paying too much attention to what I was eating. I always did because you kind of always have to once you've been bigger in your life. But after college, I gained a little bit of weight and then I did the classic thing where I restricted my calories too low. I was eating about 1,200 calories a day. I do not recommend that to anyone. I think that is far too low. I got really skinny and I thought, okay, this is the goal. But then I was in grad school and I ended up taking a physical education course. I thought it'd be a good way to get a workout in, and it was actually a weightlifting course. And that really changed things for me because up until then, the weight room was a super intimidating, often male dominated space. But having this course where somebody was teaching me about the different kinds of lifts and what you're actually supposed to do in the weight room, that was just so eye-opening for me. And it also shifted my mindset a ton into wanting to be the strongest version of myself instead of the smallest version of myself. So that was a really transformative experience and has led me to where I am today. So over the past 5 years, I focused a lot more on weight training, how to build a stronger and healthier body. So I wanted to talk about what I would recommend to someone today, sharing all the knowledge of the things that I've tried that have worked and not worked. And I do just want to emphasize that I do think so much of this was mental. And again, I talked about this in my other video, but I think the other really big important thing that has come with going for the strong and not skinny mentality is just my perception of myself and my perception of my body. It's really hard when you're that young and you're getting negative feedback or negative comments and kind of knowing that you look different from other people, even when you change your body to get to a healthier mind space. And I really feel like this path of strength has helped me shift and have more acceptance with my body and confidence as well. Okay, so let's get into kind of my top tips, what I would do now if I was starting my journey from scratch. So the first thing I would say is think of your nutrition kind of like having a budget. So if you are overspending, the first thing you need to do is figure out what are all of my expenses for a month, and then what am I going to cut back on, and what's going to be my new budget. It's really the same when it comes to your calories and figuring out how much you're eating. So the first thing you have to do is figure out how much are you actually consuming? And to do that, you're going to need to weigh and track your food, especially if you haven't done it before. And I know that can sound a little bit intense and for some people, a little bit obsessive, but it's truly the best way to understand what you're bringing into your body. And you're going to learn things just from doing that, like in the first day. My husband, for example, he tried it out and he doesn't do it every day, but even in trying it, he was like, oh my gosh, my salad dressing alone is hundreds of calories, right? So you start to learn what are the high volume foods, fruits, and vegetables, and what are really calorically dense foods like salad dressings and nut butters, and how you just need to be more mindful of your portion sizes when it comes especially to those more calorically dense foods. So that is my first thing, is you have to have a baseline of where you are now. And so that means tracking, weighing, understand how many calories you're taking in so that you can then set a realistic budget for how many calories you're going to have moving forward if you're trying to lose weight. And again, I want to emphasize that the goal is not to eat as little as possible. In fact, that's why I feel so strongly about weight training, because it's the ultimate hack. Instead of trying to eat as little as possible, I recommend trying to eat as much as possible and still losing or maintaining weight. And one of the best ways to do this is with tip number 2, which is to incorporate weight training. So I know when a lot of people are starting out, it's really tempting to just be a cardio bunny, like you're going to burn more calories, blah, 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 blah. And it's sort of like having your marshmallow now versus in the future. Obviously, it's still good to do all your cardio for your heart and for your overall health. But basically, if you are building muscle, then you are investing in your overall metabolic health for the future, because you're going to be able to eat more calories. You'll need to eat more calories to sustain that muscle. So you're building your metabolism by building up your strength. And of course, building up your strength is also going to allow your body to do the things you want it to do, especially as we all get older in the future. So I think it's beneficial on so many levels. And as I mentioned, I do think there's a big mental component that comes with weightlifting, being able to see your progression over time, see the weights that you can now pick up. It's just a real confidence booster. And I think really for women as well who've been trained to just hang out in that cardio department, it's very empowering to be strong. So definitely recommend get yourself into a weight room. I had the benefit of taking a class, but now it's so easy to find different fitness apps or on YouTube or Google. Just get a baseline set of exercises and you can start building your knowledge, foundations over time. Starting with machines is always one of my first tips, because they're going to sort of restrict the way your body can move. So you can't do too many crazy things like you could with dumbbells. So start with machines and start with weight training. Okay, so my third tip, which is also something I didn't learn until later on, but if you're developing muscle and you want to maintain, build, feed that muscle, you're going to want to eat a healthy amount of protein. And this varies for everyone, but what I would recommend is 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal weight. So there's a bit of a range here, and my tip here, it goes back to number 1, is you need to know where you're currently at, because if you're only eating 50 grams of protein a day and your target based on 0.8 of your ideal body weight is 120 grams of protein, I wouldn't recommend going from that low number to that high number straight away. I would start in segments, start building it up over time, so that way you're not overloading or confusing your body about what the heck is going on with such a quick shift. But definitely see where you are now and then start increasing and start seeing how your body reacts to it. My body has definitely embraced having more protein. It's something that keeps me full longer. I really enjoy it. If you're prioritizing that as a macro, you also don't need to worry so much about where the carbs and the fat, end up falling, because you've prioritized protein, which is, I think, the most important macro. And it's important for all those reasons we talked about. It's going to nourish your muscles. It's going to make you feel full. It's going to help with your overall macro placement. So definitely recommend prioritizing your protein. And I've got a couple of videos on here specifically about some of my favorite protein foods, favorite protein meals, all of that good stuff. Okay, so tip number 4 is about movement in general. I think a lot of people think like, oh, I go to the gym for an hour, I'm good. Like I've done all of my movement requirement for the day. And the work that you're doing in the gym is great. I don't want to take away from that, but it's also really important what you're doing all of the other hours outside of that. And that doesn't mean you have to be moving all the time, but I think it's important to incorporate walking. That's something that I have done. I used to run a lot, and I think that was a little bit more in my cardio bunny phase. I've transitioned all of that to walking, and I have not gained any weight. If anything, I feel like my hormones are a little bit more neutral. I'm happier because I never really enjoyed running that much that often. But my point is, walking is a really easy way to do that, but even making small swaps like parking a little bit further away in the car park or taking the stairs when you have the opportunity, all of those little bits of movement are really going to add up. And then also just thinking about what you enjoy. So I like to play pickleball with my friends. I like to do yoga classes. All of those things are important and they add a little extra movement and it doesn't really feel like work. So I would suggest thinking about what things can you do outside of the gym that's going to keep you a little bit more active, but are also really enjoyable. My fifth tip is don't sacrifice your favorite things, mostly food. So I love dessert, and in fact, I'll have to do another video if you guys are interested because I've started a bakery business in the past year, and my bakery business is not healthy. It is super, super indulgent, like over the top desserts, exactly my favorite things, which is great. But like maintaining a super active, healthy, strength building lifestyle while also eating a bunch of desserts has been kind of like the ultimate peak of challenging myself. But it's been really good and I've still figured it out. And that's because one, it's about balance, and two, there are still ways to have all of that healthy lifestyle and have the things you enjoy. And in fact, I would say it's not a healthy lifestyle if you're not having the things you enjoy. And for me, that's dessert. So in any case, I think it's really important that you incorporate the things you enjoy, and that could be a super decadent dessert, but it could also be thinking about how you can make healthier swaps every day. So for me, dessert, like that's important. I'm probably not going to make a healthy dessert that often, but what I will do is modify some of my other foods. So instead of going out and getting a pizza, like, is there a way to make a high protein pizza at home? Things like that. You just have to figure out what's most important to you and then what are you willing to do a little bit of a trade-off to make some of the healthier swaps for. But what is super important is not to say, like, I need to cut out all desserts. I need to cut out all of this kind of food because it's bad. That is just not going to be sustainable. So think about healthier swaps and think about prioritizing those things that you really care about. Tip number 6 is just about mindset. So I think one of the most important little mental tricks I use is just thinking about how the time is going to pass anyway, and what do I want myself and my body and my overall vision of health to look like after that time has passed. In other words, there's no rush. Like, this is not a quick fix. It's not something you're going to do for 2 weeks and then your whole life is going to be changed. Like, this is for the long haul. So really encourage yourself to be patient, to think about how it's going to take time, to think about how you can enjoy this journey and how you can still have your favorite things, and just be patient with yourself and know that if you're putting in the work, then good things are going to happen. Okay, tip number 7 is what you surround yourself with. So this is kind of also a mental thing, but also social. If you have friends who have similar interests, so you like to go hiking together, you like to play pickleball, you might like to cook healthy recipes together, that's going to make it so much easier than if you don't, or if your friends are kind of tempting you in the other direction. And of course, best case, your friends are supporting you and they're not going to give you any pressure or anything like that, and they're going to want you to make healthy choices. But you can also seek out community that is just going to reinforce all of those things you're working on. And if you're like, hey, that's not my friends, that's what social media is for. That's what YouTube is for. I have found so many recipes from other YouTubers, from Instagram accounts. Like, I am not surrounded by a bunch of women lifters, but I am on the internet and I find them very inspirational. So just really choose your circle, whether that's in person or online, carefully, because it can be very motivating and it can also be negative if you're following people who are doing unhealthy habits. So just be mindful of who you're surrounding yourself with and make sure it's serving you. Okay, so tip number 8, which is my last tip, we're doing 8 today because 8 is great, is just to focus on the basic building blocks of health. So things like sleep, make sure you prioritize sleep. It's so much easier said than done, I know, but if you can get really good rest, that's obviously going to help in every aspect, controlling your hunger cues, helping you have a great workout. So really try and prioritize getting enough sleep. It does make a difference. hydration, make sure you have enough water, always be drinking. That's kind of my motto, but H2O, nothing else. No, you could have electrolytes. I like to have tea as well, but just make sure you're hydrated. That's super important. And again, like we talked about earlier, movement throughout the day, not just going in and having a big lift, but how are you staying active? How are you making sure you're not sitting for like 15 hours straight? Things like that are also very important. So those are the tips I wanted to share today as someone who has lost 45 pounds, maintained that weight loss over time. I know that maybe this seems overwhelming. I tried to dial back the tips, but even that, it's like make sure I drink enough water and get all my steps and go to the gym and do all of this. I think if you're truly starting from the beginning, the number one thing is your nutrition. Understand what you're taking in, what's your goal, and how you're going to close that gap. And then add movement, and that can be any movement to start. Really, it's just as simple as that. That's what I recommend. And just know that if you continue to put in the work, you will see results. And for me, the best result is feeling more confident, stronger, happier in my body. That is a lifelong journey and not something that I take for granted that I can say, because definitely wasn't the case for a very long time. So thank you so much for coming and having a little chat with me today. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Let me know if there are any of these topics that you'd like me to go a little bit deeper in, or if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.